Our brother is no longer with us, so it will never be the same. Rest in peace, Max. You know that we formed a brotherhood, but I didn't have to see him or call him. He didn't have to call me when we did see each other, but it was because it was beyond your trying to get rid of the competition, you know, because you first retire, then you get me off the label, and now you're rapping again. But they all, you know, Jay and Beyoncé, drop on the same day as Nas after Nas has some kind of news is finally stating what many in the industry have been implying for years, that Jay-Z and Beyoncé are not only competitive, but also ruthless after a glitch issue where Tidal would not release his album for at least 24 hours. Nas is now pointing out how both of them have gone out of their way to when they feel threatened. They undercut their colleagues, including DMX. There was friction between DMX and Jay-Z, no secret. But it was worse behind the scenes than most people realized. DMX even revealed how Jay obstructed the release of his 6th album because he didn't want to compete, and by postponing that album, Jay cut off, given that X was still one of the few rappers who could outsell him at the time. DMX's momentum was well known. Fast forward a few years, and Nas claims that Jay-Z and Beyoncé did the exact same thing to him. When Nas released his eagerly awaited album Nasir, which was produced by Kanye West, it was expected to be a major hit. We all know that you don't unintentionally release a whole visual album the day after one of your oldest rivals drops his first major hit. But Jay-Z and Beyoncé released a surprise album of their own, Everything Is Love, just one day after Nasir dropped. The album included a pre-recorded music video shot in Paris. The crazy thing is that Nas wasn't even trying to beef with Jay-Z. He had moved past all of that, but the Carters obviously hadn't, whether it was out of jealousy, insecurity, or just plain pettiness. Nas saw through the project in years because this wasn't a one-time thing. It's been a pattern with Jay-Z for years. We work around the same time, and they revealed how Jay undermined everyone he perceived as competition while simultaneously concealing himself behind his wife's reputation and fandom. They also claimed that AJ released Unplugged on December 18th, Street Disciple on November 30th, and Collision 'cause Nas best hits everything about American Gangster Nader is Love, including the lost tapes. Beyond Lion King by Jay-Z, that's where the Lion King soundtrack went haywire. Fans have recently brought DMX back into the spotlight by recalling how he was one of the few brave rappers on the Lion King soundtrack. The crazy thing is that after DMX passed away in April 2021, Jay-Z appeared on LeBron James' show and attempted to change the narrative by claiming that DMX was overly competitive but that it was all love. Others were too afraid to say anything bad about Jay or Beyoncé. DMX himself conveniently omitted this part, but it was actually Jay who began playing the role. Otherwise, it was a competitive thing between them, but it was a big love. He was so competitive with me that I never met a human being more competitive with me, like, ever. Not even my big brother. 2004 competition game. Things began to change when Jay-Z succeeded Leah Cohen as president of Def Jam. DMX had been carrying Def Jam on his back, releasing 5 consecutive #1 albums from 1998 to 2003, but X claimed that after Jay-Z took over as president, he began to tamper with Year of the Dog. His 6th album was released once more. As I mentioned earlier, I had a crazy track record with Def Jam, so everything was going well. Yes, exactly. He called me when he first started working there and said, "Hey, mate, you're just running the building. Like, you're good? I'm complete." The album and film, the video, what happened? Go on vacation, and you realize that we have no idea what you mean or how you. How can you listen to an entire album, choose one song, and then make a video and not know what to do? And DMX claims that all of this occurred because Jay chose to come out of retirement and didn't want any rivals to get in his way. Alright, I understand what's really nice about you trying to get rid of the competition since you elected to retire first. Then, get me off the label. You're rapping once more. Alright. Everything is okay. That's when it dawned on DMX that Jay was incredibly insecure and would put anyone else's career ahead of his own. At that point, X decided it was time to leave Def Jam, but this wasn't a one-time thing. DMX and Jay-Z's problem is part of a long-running pattern that reveals Jay's insecurities and how he used his influence in the industry to subtly marginalize anyone he perceived as a threat. For instance, he recently disclosed that Jay would purposefully schedule his album releases to coincide with Beanie Sigel's projects were released, essentially to ensure that Beanie's releases were eclipsed. In my opinion, One man cannot ruin another's life. It is ultimately up to you. As I mentioned earlier, I had a lot of problems, including legal ones at the time, and you know me, thoughts weren't where they are now, and I used to wonder why Jay would always dump my album directly on top of me, preventing me from breathing, as if I were always in close proximity and couldn't comprehend why he did it. Jay slammed into me, saying, "Damn, it was crazy to have in-house competition at that magnitude." Jay was already the boss, but I always thought, let me breathe. And then there was Cameron. You may recall how Jay-Z basically showed up during that 106 in Park interview with Cam, expecting to take front stage for himself. What was going through your head throughout that interview? Jay-Z and Cameron. No one told me he was coming. So, while I was sitting there, thinking I was having my turn on 106 in Park, talking about how my life was going, he came from the back, and I was like, I'm sitting there trying to be as calm as possible because, as you mentioned, this is my time to be on 106 in the Park and talk about but I can't even recall what you said, so it clearly changed into his. Don't even with like music, what's going on? We've heard that you're working on another album. Could you tell us about it? What's going on with the blueprint for the Gift of the Curse? Oh, on my time. As I mentioned earlier, I didn't know he was there. If I had, we would have gotten along, but it was more of a surprise. My expression was probably more of a what's going on than one of disgust. Jay-Z never wanted another artist to surpass him, but instead of battling it out lyrically, he used these cunning tactics to ensure that no one could come too close to his level. Alright, let's go back to Nas. Jay-Z has a long history of attempting to snatch the limelight from Nas by releasing projects at roughly the same time, almost like clockwork. When Nas published Stillmatic in December 2001, a significant comeback album, Jay released his own. Because he is the one who knows best how sneaky Jay-Z can be when he feels threatened. In 2004, Nas released Street's Disciple, and shortly after, Jay collaborated with Linkin Park on Collision Course. In 2007, Nas released Greatest Hits, and a few days later, Jay released American Gangster. However, it didn't end there. In 2018, Nas finally released his eagerly awaited album Nasir, which was produced by Kanye. Within a day, Jay and Beyonce unexpectedly released Everything Is Love, which included a stylish music video for Apachit shot at the Louvre Museum in Paris. More recently, when Nas released the Lost Tapes 2, Beyonce and Jay-Z's Lion King: The Gift Project became popular on streaming services. There is just no way that any of these are coincidences, and Nas doesn't believe that either. However, there is more to the story, and it concerns how Nas exposed Jay-Z for always using Beyoncé's image as a cover when he engages in these devious tactics, never shied away from speaking out against what others in the industry avoid saying. And one of his most explosive moments occurred years ago when he appeared on Wendy Williams' radio show. At that time, Nas went beyond simply criticizing Jay-Z's dubious business practices to reveal how Jay-Z purposefully kept quiet about R. Kelly explicitly accused Jay of ignoring all the warning signs in order to profit from their joint Best of Both Worlds project. Valentino even though she was aware of the unsettling rumors and accusations that surrounded him. That's not what I'm going to do though. I could have posted movies and shown the much discussed Kelly video, mocked it by stating, "Yo, Jay's hanging out." You can't claim that Jay didn't witness a 14-year-old girl enter the studio and on R. Kelly when he was there playing basketball. In addition to saying that he has never seen a 14-year-old girl, Nas also implied that Jay's silence might have been about more than just keeping a bag safe, suggesting that Jay wasn't just another enabler, and that he might have had his own secrets in the closet. In my opinion, anyone who has worked with him and been around Jay, he had to be indulgent for 14 years. But Jay-Z made another strategic move. Instead of addressing any of those accusations in his cipher, he has watched it go down. My brother needs help, and I pray for him. But if I sit here and make an album about women with him, I'm absolutely, maybe indulging you. Funded the Surviving R. Kelly documentary, which ultimately resulted in Kelly's arrest and buried the entire problem surrounding his acquaintance with Kelly. He then changed his name to Family Man. Jay, Beyoncé's husband, a father of 3 and the spokesperson for Black capitalism, has called out 50 additionally. Jay was recently criticized by Scent for concealing behind Beyoncé's public persona and for publicly stating that his marriage is more of a commercial arrangement than a genuine one. When Jay signed his contract with Beyoncé, he received trophies. He began receiving Grammys left and right, friend. And those trophies came flowing in. I mean, if you look at the status show up, he has about 20 now. And he had about 18 while he was depressed. Hard knock life, bro. You're not incorrect. But he also has some. He seems to be drinking, believes the cup. But hold on a second. You're claiming that the marriage is the reason for your success, and you've received different treatment and recognition because he's no longer perceived as a street or gangster rapper. He is now seen as a businessman, entrepreneur, family man. And the most important one, due to his position with Beyoncé. Oh my goodness, that's the deal he signed. The other ones didn't matter as much as that one did. And then in another according to Interview 50, the majority of Jay's Grammy victories would not have occurred if he had not been married to Beyoncé. You can see that the kids even have Grammys, but they don't sing yet. They don't sing correctly, they haven't rapped yet, and it's as though they give them this trophy so we know they're coming. And it all comes back to DMX because, like, Nas X was among the first artists to see Jay's tactics and not be hesitant to call him out. DMX was outspoken in his criticism of Jay-Z's use of his influence at Def Jam to marginalize possible threats, and both DXness and X enjoyed each other's respect because they were the only ones who dared to speak out against Jay-Z's calculated manipulations. Nas and X made it clear that they weren't going to kiss the ring simply because Jay had industry connections, past, not because he lost a buddy, but rather because he lost one of the few individuals in the industry who understood what was truly happening and dared to speak up about it. It affected Nas hard. However, it's a pleasure to be here tonight, which is both a sad and a beautiful day as we stood outside. I want to offer my condolences to my brother DMX and his family, as well as to all of his lovely children in Yonkers. He was looking at me with tears in his eyes as he prepared to film a scene at Tunnel Nightclub. To Swiss Beats for Rough Riders. The entire family is locked by Dave. Nas and DMX were more than just pals and co-workers. They were truth tellers who revealed the games that Jay-Z was trying so hard to cover behind the scenes. Drag on everyone. I spoke my piece. Love music. From destroying records to concealing oneself under Beyoncé's persona, Jay has a long history of dubious business practices. But how much of this do fans actually see or comprehend? How do you feel about Jay's strategies for dealing with competition? Did Nas and DMX have the right to call him out? Or is it just what is your opinion on Beyoncé's image and what role does she play in the music industry? Contributes to Jay's legacy and success. Post your opinions in the comments section below, and I'll see you in the following video.